I was 16 years old, the only daughter of my parents. My brothers used to be away for work, so I was the only child in the house. My mom worked double shifts to pay the bills ever since dad died. I was given the duty to go and buy groceries because mom didn't have much time to buy them herself. One day, as usual, I went out to buy groceries, but this time instead of the usual morning grocery run, I went out at night. There was this school function I had to attend, and I figured mom would not find out if I bought groceries in the morning or at night. She usually comes late, cooks food for the next day, and goes to sleep. So after coming back from the event, I changed my clothes and went outside. It was quite damp and humid outside. The darkness made it look even more gloomy. Typical weather, I expressed. The streets were mostly empty, with a few people roaming around aimlessly. I counted on the 24/7 shop to be open, which it usually is, unless there's an unforsaken event. Nevertheless, I got there, and it was open fortunately. As I was picking up my things, I saw this odd-looking man, most probably in his 50s. He was looking at me from a distance, the sort of look that makes you uncomfortable at the very second. I immediately got my things and went outside. Adding to my frustration, the man started moving too. I picked up my pace. His long coat and black hat made it difficult for me to figure out his face. I immediately took a sharp turn. To my horror, he turned too. I increased my pace even further. I wanted to run, but I did not want him to know that I'm afraid. I kept telling myself that it's a coincidence and I'm afraid for no reason. But after a few more turns, my superstition felt correct. He was following me. Now I was nearing my house. I never felt gladder to see my home so close. I took out my keys, hurriedly opened the door, the locks, and threw myself inside. I took a little peek outside. I couldn't see the man anywhere. I was quite glad. Exhausted, I jumped to bed, praying my mom would come back in time tonight. I tried to sleep, but the thought of him coming to my house didn't let me. Soon enough, my drowsiness got the best of me, and I was quite asleep. A cracking sound woke me up. Terrified, my mind immediately thought it was that same guy and he's trying to break in. I stood up, ran towards my window, and cried for my dear life for the sight I had to see. Indeed, it was that same guy. I recognized him for the same clothes he was wearing earlier that day. I ran towards the telephone, but I remember that we didn't pay the telephone bill this month. I cursed out loud and started to look for something sharp in the house. I found a knife and an old baseball bat of my dad's. I never thought I would see such a horrible day come. The guy was halfway inside, and I was praying a miracle happens, and he decides to leave. I placed myself behind a chair with the bat in my hand. The window was about to break. The thud noise of him breaking the window grew louder. My hands were sweating. Fear was engulfing me. I could feel the effects of adrenaline had on my body. The next few seconds felt like a lifetime. The window gave up. He put his foot in, and then his entire body came in. My body reacted, and I started shouting out loud. The man was slowly coming towards me. I waved my bat around to threaten him. He picked up his pace. There was a loud voice in the background, and the door swung open. There was a policeman in the background with a few of my neighbors. The policeman pinned down the guy with such ferocity, the guy didn't give much resistance. I was so relieved that the policeman arrived. My mom came home a few minutes later, shocked to see what had happened. It turns out that the intruder was a well-known offender. He was on bail for harassing a child. He was immediately arrested and sent to jail after that. My mom and I moved out of town, and 26 years later, I still can't forget this story. It sends chills down my bone every time I think about it. I was 12 years old living in our previous home. It was quite an old house. Our great-grandfather bought it when he migrated to England in 1945. It was an old Victorian-styled house with many rooms. One odd night, I went to bed after dinner. I'm a quick sleeper, so I usually go to sleep as soon as I hit the bed. Sometime at 12 o'clock, I heard a creaking noise. I ignored it, thinking it was the wind blowing into the window, but the noise kept going on. After a few minutes, I got annoyed and woke up. As soon as I woke up, the noise was gone. I didn't take much notice of that and went back to sleep. But then the noise came back again. I immediately stood up and closed my window. When I was going back to my bed, a glass outside my room broke and gave a shattering sound. I jumped and was surprised. A part of me wanted to investigate, and part of me wanted not to, because I was really scared. Sometimes my cousins used to tell me creepy stories about the house and how it was haunted. Because of that, I didn't want to investigate. After a few minutes of pondering, I mustered up the courage to go outside, and so I went. Outside, it was quite dark as my parents did not like to turn the lights on while sleeping. I slowly crept outside so that I didn't wake them up. I didn't want to create any noises. If my parents woke up, they would scold me to sleep. So I used my little torch. I didn't want to step on the broken glass. A few seconds later, I found out the source of the sound. It was a glass vase our uncle gifted us. I thought, now that I'm here, I should clean it. There was no sign of anything creepy other than the darkness. I started cleaning up the broken glass, and during that, I heard a loud voice of a door closing. It almost made me jump, and thankfully, I didn't shout or anything like that, but I was pretty much scared. My brain started thinking it's either a ghost or a burglar. I looked around and I couldn't make up where the sound was coming from. I picked up the glass and went towards the kitchen to dump it. I walked quite slowly, not knowing what kind of noise I might hear. Eventually, I reached the kitchen. I threw the glass in the dustbin and went forward to my room. When I was going into my room, I saw a person, an old man, in the window. I became consumed with fear and ran towards my bedroom. I tried to sleep, but the fear in my head would not let me. The later part of the night felt like a lifetime. I prayed for sunrise to come early. Finally, the sunrise came. I went outside for breakfast and saw my parents there. My mom inquired me about the missing vase. I told her everything with what had happened last night. My dad and mom laughed sarcastically. They said I was trying to cover up the fact that I broke the vase. I was quite disappointed that they didn't believe in me. Nighttime came. I was afraid that it might happen again, and my parents would blame me for breaking something else in the house. After a few hours, there was no noise or any breaking of glass. I made myself believe that it was only a one-time thing. I went to sleep a few moments after that. Deep into sleep, I heard the same creaking voice again. I looked over my room, and at first I didn't see anything. But when I focused again, I saw something on top of my cupboard. It was the same old man. Immediately, I started screaming. A few seconds later, my dad came running inside. He came near me and asked what is wrong. I explained it to him, and he told me he didn't see anything on the cupboard. Unexpectedly, my mom from the other room started screaming too. My dad ran to the other room. I was too afraid to run after him. My mom also saw the same thing as me, so my dad told me to sleep with mom and him that night. We ended up moving houses. Thankfully, I never saw the old man ever again. It's been 21 years later since this incident happened. This memory still haunts me from time to time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Stay safe